Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter likes to hit the mute button on me all the time. Welcome to the Packernet Podcast. I'm a little thrown off here, but I appreciate you joining me and all that good stuff. So today's going to be part 2 of the potential first-round edge rusher series. In order of what we're going to be doing is going to be James Pierce of Tennessee, Mike Green of Marshall, Shamar Stewart of Texas A&M, Michael Williams of Georgia, Jalen Walker of Georgia. That's based on the consensus big board, at least as of, a week ago. Similar to yesterday, there is a little bit of news and notes here, and so I want to fly through them because this does take a good amount of time. A few things here. I'm not going to go back and look at Easton Butler's sheet, but let's just say I happened to notice these, so we'll talk about it. The Packers are hosting Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen on a top 30 visit. Very excited about that. I am a fan of Nolen, although we'll see when we get to defensive tackle. I've been hyping him up. We'll see if it stays the same. Also, Oregon defensive end Jordan Birch, according to Matt Schneidman, I believe. So Nolen and Birch are coming in. You know, that is one major difference between Gutekunst and Ted Thompson. Ted Thompson, with his top 30 visits, scoured the depths of the later round prospects. And so it always kind of made sense why his early round picks didn't super pan, or his first round picks didn't super pan out, but he would nail like a fourth round pick. And I always kind of thought it was intuitive also because it's easier to scout some of the early round guys or whatever. Gutekunst has been very aggressively attacking. And you know, you go through the list, they've met with a ton of later round guys, but the amount of like every potential first round prospect, by the time it's said and done, the majority of them have met with the Packers. You look at the amount of the 30 visits that they get. The amount of those that are questioning which first-round pick should we make and possibly, second round. Maybe Birch is there in the second round. I don't know. But he works really hard at that. Now, need to start seeing some really good results out of that. But it is a big difference between the two GMs. Not going to play it again for the sake of time. But Dane Brugler was talking about cornerback Will Johnson. Obviously, just a couple days ago, we talked pretty extensively about him. They're saying he may get drafted lower than expected. We've been kind of talking about that for a while. Will Johnson has kind of been paired with Teteroa McMillan, where it's like a top 10 prospect that also could see a big slide. And Shedeur Sanders is also in that camp. He could go top 10. He could go late first or possibly even in the second. But the quote that he said was, there are enough question marks that a team like the Packers could end up getting a really good player there later in the first round. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I'd be doing backflips or not if we got him. I don't want to rehash everything I said about him, but when I started watching him, I immediately saw a different caliber of player. Immediately, certain things started to jump out to me that this guy is a really talented cornerback. But you start to see the problems with the speed. And it's, I believe, a real limitation. I don't know because he won't run a 40, and I think there's another workout scheduled. I think he even mentions that in the video, but the expectation is he's not going to run a 40 because he knows it ain't going to be good. But we'll see. Finally, Tom Silverstein of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel posted an article. The title pretty much says it all. The Green Bay Packers are receiving interest in Jair Alexander, but a trade is not imminent. I always hate to get into politics because I know someone's going to get offended about a very nothing comment, but this reminds me very much of like the trade negotiations going on between United States and other countries. We keep hearing every 5 seconds about a new country is now willing to negotiate, 50 countries, 130 countries, all these countries. And it's like, how many deals have we got done? It's like, well, none. It's like, okay, great. But they want to have a deal done, right? Yeah, okay. Are we going to close any of them or no? Okay. So yeah, lots of interest out there about Jair Alexander, but probably because, parallels here, the asking price is a little more than people are willing to give up. There's a gap between we're willing to have a discussion and we're willing to do what you think is the right thing. He said not much has been revealed publicly about Gutekunst's attempts, but according to two league sources monitoring Alexander's situation, the Packers have received interest in a trade and remain committed to waiting for a deal to be made instead of cutting him. The source said the Packers appeared close to making a deal at the start of free agency, but the combination of the trade compensation and Alexander's unwillingness to cut his salary to fit the other team's salary cap have made it difficult to close a deal. So that Jair is going to be another problem here. He wants everything. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to leave the Packers, but he also wants to stay on this big contract that the Packers are supposed to pay him. And it's like, bro, nobody's going to pay you that, including the Packers, by the way. Like, if there was ever going to be a way for you to stay, it would include a pay cut. And what he needs to understand is, he's like, okay, we can trade you here, but they'll only do it if you'll take a pay cut. And he's like, no, I won't do it. You understand what's going to happen is you're going to get cut. You're going to negotiate your own contract, and it's going to be a smaller contract. There are not going to be offers of major contracts. It's not going to be a thing. Now, maybe he'd want that anyways because you get that big old fat check at the beginning of a new contract. I don't really know what his plan is, but I'm getting the impression that there is a lack of... I think he's refusing to accept the situation that he's in. He knows he is a really, really, really good corner and he wants to be treated as such. He's refusing to accept that his injury history is extensive and he's not 23 years old anymore. He's not 30, but he's an older guy that is constantly injured over the last, I think, 3 years. He hasn't been able to get or stay on a field. And the ironic thing about this is I have a suspicion that he's been, to some degree, refusing to play hurt because he thinks that's going to hurt his value because he's going to go on the field and not look like as good of a football player. We know because we heard these comments from people like Devondre Campbell around that same time that it was circulating in our locker room that why should I play hurt anymore if I'm going to go out there and not perform at my best and then you throw me under the bus? I have a hunch that Jair was in that same camp. I'm not going to go out there at 25% and not look like a good player and then get blamed and told that I'm a bum football player. The problem is by refusing to play or saying you're too hurt to play, it hurts you just the same. I think it would have been significantly better to make the case and say, well, I was hurt, but at least I was on the field and I did my best. But I don't think he saw it that way. I want to be 100% so I can go out there and dominate and get that big fat stack of cash. Well, unfortunately, you were hurt the entire time and didn't gut it out and didn't get on the field at different times. So people are looking at the percentage of time that you get on a football field. It's exceedingly low, and you're not getting the money now. And I think he's pissed. And I think he's kind of, and maybe he's got an agent in his ear that's talking him up. I don't know. But I think as of right now, there is a belief of I refuse to accept that I'm not a big superstar and I'm not going to get this big stack of cash. Again, this is speculative. This is what I'm trying to read between the lines and figure out what's going on. But, if Jair is refusing to take a pay cut, then he's refusing to accept reality. One of the other things that was mentioned in the article is a way for the Packers to kind of circumvent this is to take on another player with a contract. So it's kind of a one-to-one swap. So it's like, I'll take your pain of a contract, you take my pain of a contract. But I mean, we'd have to talk about possibly who, because I know that there are some personality things and injury. Maybe you could find a guy that's not really injured, he's just not really panning out. But I mean, if they're trying to offload a contract of a player that's not worth that, I don't see the point of taking that on just to offload Jair. It seems like taking too many steps back. It would be the equivalent, in my opinion, of sort of just cutting him. It's kind of just doing a negative because it's something that needs to happen, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't have this player that we don't want and are overpaying. It's an option. I just don't know that it's the best option, but you'd have to kind of explore which people we're talking about here. All right, let's get started. One other quick clarification, and I know I'm uniquely bad at this, but I want to try to get this right, and I'm never going to remember. I don't believe it's Ezaraku. I believe it's Ezaraku. Donovan Ezaraku. I don't know if I've said that in the past, but I know it's evolved into Ezaraku. But looking at it phonetically, the emphasis seems to be put on the ah, as Raku. Donovan Ezaraku. Okay, so All right, next on the list here in the first round, we've got James Pierce Jr. He is on the consensus board at 30. He has been falling quite a bit. He was a top 20 prospect and has continued to fall. 6'5", 245, so good height, real slender though. Jalen Walker is 2 pounds lighter, but is 4 inches lower, so is shorter. Very, very slim guy. Ran a 4.47, 156, 10-yard split. All that is fantastic. Hands, arm length, wingspan, age and RAS, 21.5 and 9.4 RAS. All of that is checks all the boxes. Just a little bit slimmer of a guy. And then there's also some off-the-field stuff that we'll get into. All right, so let's start off with my thoughts on James Pierce. First of all, the speed is certainly evident. I think the one thing that sticks out in my mind is designated pass rusher. The size is a bit of a problem. I watched him against Ohio State. I watched a little bit of a 2023 game because I was trying to find that combination of he had a pretty good game, but also the tackles don't suck, and a lot of the tackles kind of sucked. I settled on Ohio State because at least they don't have a bad tackle. They got, according to PFF, a good and an average tackle, which I think is good enough. Florida was a little bit better than that, but it was one of his worst games, so I decided not to go that route. But there are certainly flashes. You know, if he goes unblocked, he can fly. He can chase from behind. If there's just chaos and he's out in space chasing the quarterback, he's extremely disruptive, that whole thing. On stunts and twists, he can be a terror. The speed that he can launch from the outside to the inside and then blitz that unsuspecting guard who just gets leveled because he's not expecting it and somebody's coming at 1,000 miles an hour. All that is great, but it's all very scheme dependent, and I just don't know that as far as just mano-a-mano lined up with a guard that knows what he's doing and has a good amount of mass, that he won a lot of those. And granted, you generally lose most of your fights against a tackle anyways. Even the best at the best lose more often than they win. You're not seeing 55% win rates out there. At least I don't think so. But that would be my immediate concern, I suppose. At 21 years old, he's coachable just like anybody else. He has unique tools. Again, the goal being assuming we draft him, I want to have the vision in place. Okay, this is why we drafted him. This is what we're excited about. And it's the fact that he has elite speed, elite tools, that he can be used in those kinds of ways, but he also has the ability to grow. You know, one of the Pack Daddy scouting terms is he gets stuck. And he does get stuck. And that is, you know, I tried to, bull rush the guy, or I tried to get to the outside, and the tackle, he called me out on it. He caught me, and now I don't have a second plan. I don't have the strength to just push you back. A couple times he did. You know, it's usually he gets that good initial burst, and the guy's on his heels immediately. Well, then, yeah, at that point he just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and he'll eventually get there. But, some guys, it doesn't matter if the tackle's ready. Like Rashawn Gary's a big, scary, mean dude. It really doesn't matter. If you give him enough time, he's going to continue to push you. He's going to get around you. It's going to happen eventually. Some guys just don't have that. They're usually the smaller guys. And again, at 6'5", which is not great to have size unless you know how to use your arms. That's the one benefit of being tall. But if you're going to stand up, it gives you a disadvantage. That's what Mike Daniels would talk about, is that being shorter actually gives you leverage, which is an advantage. But anyways, being tall and light can give you a major disadvantage if you end up upright with a tackle that knows how to use a proper stance. So they're always in this like sumo scouching. The heck word am I trying to think of? Squatting stance. Freaking whatever. And so they understand the leverage. They understand how to bend their knees. They understand all that stuff. And if they get squared up with you and they got like 100 pounds on you almost, yeah, it's going to be tough from that point on. Not as worried about not seeing the vision because I really don't think we're drafting him, but I'll try it anyways because you never know. 2-year starter at Tennessee, Pierce played Leo position in defensive coordinator's Tim Banks' scheme. Leo, my understanding, is left end outside. At least maybe that's just a PFF designation. He does tend to play on the left side, which is why initially I just found somebody who had a good right tackle, but then he would switch to the other side against a garbage tackle and get an immediate pressure, and I'm like, all right, I can't do this. But the reason that's interesting is because he's primarily a stand-up outside linebacker, so it's different than what a left-end Leo would be. But anyways, led the Vols in sacks and tackles for a loss as a sophomore and a junior. Productive, ranks top 10 in school history with 19.5 career sacks. On the negative side, arrested on traffic charges, speeding, driving on a suspended license, failure to present insurance after a stop on December 2023, all charges later dismissed. Interview process will be crucial. One NFL scout said, "I want to be convinced that he loves this." James Pierce, raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, started playing football in the youth leagues. Fan of Cam Newton, played mostly offense until switching to defense in middle school. Attended Zebulon Vance High. Had a pair of sacks in the title game win over Rollsville. 210-pound senior. Pierce logged snaps at nose tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, and safety. Posted his most productive season. Bunch of stats. Helped the team win 4 AA state title game in 2021. Pierce earned all conference honors, selected in 2021 Carolina Bowl All-Star game. Also played basketball in high school. 4-star recruit, 21st ranked edge rusher, 2022 recruiting class, number 5 recruit in North Carolina. Late bloomer on the recruiting trail, received his first scholarship offer as a junior from Charlotte. He had offers the following weeks from Louisville, Missouri, Oklahoma, Syracuse, UCF. Got more SEC programs entering the mix during his senior year, including Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Somewhat unceremoniously, Pierce signed with the Volunteers and was the top-ranked recruit and head coach Josh Heupel's 22 class. He was a pescatarian over his first 2 seasons at Tennessee. After 3 years, Pierce skipped his senior season and then entered the NFL draft. Is that what that word is? It's an odd little note in the middle of that. Pescatarian is a fish eater. Doesn't eat chicken, beef, pork, just fish. Would explain why he's so thin. All right. So that's James Pierce. Again, several issues as far as why I don't think he'd be a Packer. He's on the smaller outside linebacker size, and there have been some off-the-field concerns about his character and whatnot, even beyond, obviously, speeding is not the end of the world, but I think that there are larger concerns about his love of the game and maybe his maturity and attitude, all of which just kind of point to, I just don't see why the Packers would make that their first-round selection, but we'll see. All right, let's take our first break. We'll come back and do Mr. Mike Green out of Marshall. So this is the first big jump. So James Pierce, Azaraku, Scorton, these guys are late first, early second guys. Mike Green is 18. So now we're getting into the realm of these guys are expected to be gone before the Packers pick, but if the Packers trade up / if any of these guys happen to fall, like Shamar Stewart absolutely could fall because he's just lacking any form of production but is an elite athlete. Mike Green, smaller school, maybe some stuff going on with him, whatever. We'll see. I think Jalen Walker is probably the one you can assume will not, but you never know. Mike Green, 6'3", 251. Only real knock, he's got smaller hands, 8.5-inch hands. A little bit smaller wingspan at 77 3/4. Most of these guys are pretty comfortably over 80 inches. So a little bit smaller, shorter arms, smaller hands, but he's 21 years old. Again, decent size, 6'3", 251. Definitely want to watch his game against Ohio State, largely because he's at a smaller school. So even if I look at Coastal Carolina and they say, oh, they got really good tackles, yeah, but PFF doesn't grade on a curve. They probably have great tackles because they're going up against lesser talent most of the time. So Ohio State is going to be probably your best look at this. The thing that I think I've grown to, and this is one of the guys that it's taken me some time. When I first watched him, I'm like, I don't really get it. I don't know what, because especially when they're, one of the top pass rushers, you expect some kind of freaky stuff to pop out. And some guys, especially if their main thing is speed, it's easy to see the freakiness. I think once in a while, the key to watching a pass rusher, and this can be other positions as well, but watch the opponent. If you watch the tackles against Pierce, for example, sometimes they get beat with speed, and they're like, oh, crap, whatever. But sometimes they're just kind of squared up and they don't move, right? There's that initial jolt where they got to kind of take a step back and then reset. When you watch the tackles, and he is primarily against Ohio State's right tackle, who's the lesser of the two, Josh Fryer, but it is a frickin' brawl. It is an absolute brawl. This guy packs, and I think it's later in this game. I'm going to continue watching. I'm kind of talking as I go because I've seen this like 2 other times. This is the game I've always watched with him. There's a point where he throws a guy with one hand, and that was the first time my jaw hit the floor with him. Like, what the heck was that? At 250 some pounds, he packs a ton of power. Some guys just know how to use their body in a way to just generate power. You know, if you ever look at arm wrestling or something, for example, you got these guys that are scrawny that will destroy these big bodybuilders and whatnot. There's just a way, you know, smaller guys that know how to throw a punch compared to big guys that don't. Some guys just know how to generate power, and he's one of them. This right tackle, every play is in a fight for his life. You know, and just when you think he's got the guy, he does this jolt and then rip. And he rips past him on the outside. And then when it's not that, he just pushes through. And, you know, just a couple plays in, the right tackle's helmet comes flying off. And it's just emblematic of the fact that this is such an absolute fist fight trying to contain this guy. He is a wild, violent, very strong person. And when he wants to go somewhere, good luck trying to stop him. And it doesn't always look the prettiest, which is, I think, another reason why it's kind of hard to gauge him. When you first look at it, it looks kind of sloppy or whatever. And some guys are that way. I think it was like, was it Simmons, who's a Tennessee Titan, was kind of similar. There are certain guys that are just these powerful guys that don't super look polished, but they're just wrecking balls. And they don't usually come in this package, you know, smaller, 250-pound, kind of lanky-looking guys. But I think that's part of what throws me off a little bit, but it's there. It's a very similar type of player. You know, and even when, you know, the on this run play that went for like a 90-yard touchdown against Marshall, you know, the tight end, and he comes in to block him. And technically he gets the block because the run's kind of to the other side or whatever. But man, that tight end is going to be sore the next day. He got launched about 5 feet on the initial pop, and he is just fighting for his life. And again, he technically secured the block well enough. So you could look at that and say, oh, you got beat by a tight end, you bum. But I think, you know, again, on second, third look, closer examination, first of all, the reason they use a tight end there is because you really don't need to get much of a block to keep the guy from the far side to get to the other side. But man, he got worked across the field. And you know, you watch James Pierce, there are times when they got bigger receivers, either really small tight ends or big receivers. I think it was number 15, if Ohio State fans know who I'm talking about. Kind of big-ish guy, but he pushed him off the field, you know? So there's levels to this thing. And again, it can be sloppy. Sometimes he's falling around and all that kind of stuff. He probably needs a little bit of work on that. You know, stop ending up on the ground so much, because he's just pushing with all his might to get in a certain direction, and he starts tripping and falling once in a while. It's not the cleanest thing in the world all the time, but he's as far as do I get the vision? Yes, I do. It's not even a question. No question, I can see it. Okay, I found the play. If you watch Marshall against Ohio State, 1st and 10, 5:30 left in the second quarter. I think this is the play. Either way, it is an absolute insane exercise in power here. Up on the right side, that might be up against a tight end. I'm not exactly sure. I think it is. But he knocks this guy back 10 yards, and then at the end, out of frustration, uses one hand, his right hand, to push him. And it's kind of like the Reggie White thing where he pushes him and he does a back somersault. Just like, holy cow. I think initially I thought it was an offensive lineman, so it's a little more impressive, but still, he's a strong dude. Yeah, he literally hip tossed him and threw him and made him do a somersault. That was I think it was the same guy that pushed James Pierce off the field. Just to do contrasting things, it's number 15, Jelani Thurman, who is listed at 6'6", 260 pounds. So for a tight end, he's massive, and he's actually bigger than either of the two pass rushers. 6'6", 260, and Mike Green hip-tossed him over his freaking shoulder. Listed as number 4 on the big board here. 1-year starter at Marshall. Green was a stand-up edge rusher. That is one knock. He's a stand-up outside linebacker. In Jason Seymour's 4-man front, after showing flashes on 23 tape, he emerged as an All-American defensive lineman in 24, leading the Herd to a 10-win season in the Sun Belt Championship. Finished the season ranked first in the FBS in sacks with 17, and tackles by a defensive lineman with 84, and sack yardage, 144, 42 yards more than the number 2 on the list. As long as his character checks out, he's one of the top pass rush prospects in the draft class. Remember, there are serious allegations against him, which might just put him off some people's boards. On the flip side, that may cause him to fall just far enough, I'm just saying. There is a thing here that says strong character feedback from coaches at Virginia and Marshall. Charles Huff says he's the most humble human being you'll ever meet. That's going to work in his favor big time. Because, off the field and character don't always have to be in line. I mean, guys can be, well, whatever. We don't need to get it because it's pretty serious allegations, so I'm just going to shut up. On the negative side, only one season of starting experience, beat up on mediocre competition in the Sun Belt, played well 2024 Ohio State tape, but had only one pressure, which is, again, I was impressed with Ohio State, but there was the one pressure. Not a lot of opportunity. I mean, sometimes he beat the guy, but the ball just comes out quick. NFL teams will put his background under a microscope. Suspended at the start of the second year of Virginia following sexual assault allegations. Green was not charged, and the case was suspended. Green has denied any wrongdoing. Sexual assault allegations while in high school. No formal charges filed. Shortly before signing day, Virginia requested he sign a zero-tolerance policy. Mike Green, youngest of 5 kids, born in Newport News area, Virginia, with his mother Michelle, an in-home nurse. He also has a close relationship with his uncle, Sean Jones. When he was young, the family relocated to Williamsburg, Virginia, where Green started playing sports and developed a love for football. His brother EJ, who is 2 years older, played football at Lafayette High School before attending JUCO and later walking on and eventually earning a scholarship as a linebacker at Old Dominion, 2021 to 2024. Green enrolled at Lafayette. He was a 3-year varsity letterman, started on JV before moving to varsity as a sophomore, played both ways, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker. He also joined the wrestling team, won several area and regional tournaments, finished second at the state championship as a sophomore at 185, and finished third as a junior at the 220-pound division. 3-star recruit, Green was 109th ranked wide receiver in 2021 recruiting class, number 15 recruit in Virginia. Had his first Division I offer after his junior season from Boston College. So there is going to be a Boston College. I think, I forget what years Hafley was there, but it would have been Hafley offering, so there would be some familiarity there. Over the next few months, Green added offers from App State, East Carolina, Kansas State, Kent State, Old Dominion, Pittsburgh, Temple, UMass, Virginia Tech, and Western Kentucky, plus his first SEC offer from Kentucky and Ole Miss. He also received recruiting attention as a wrestler, including an offer from King University, but he connected with coaches and culture at Virginia and committed in April 2020. He signed as a defensive player, 7th-ranked recruit and former head coach Bronco Mendenhall's first class of Virginia. He was suspended entering his second season because of sexual assault allegations and left the program. Charlottesville police suspended the investigation into the alleged incident. Green denied the allegation at the press conference at the Combine. Green entered the transfer portal December 2022, joining Marshall in the spring of 23. Following the 23 season, he turned down several attractive and lucrative NIL offers to stay at Marshall. Green opted out of Marshall's 24 bowl game, accepted the invite to the Senior Bowl. So, a lot of moving parts with that guy. Small school, small guy, violent, strong, talented, great character, but also some serious character questions. It might be one of those things where you just say, you know what, I don't want to mess with that whole mess. I'll let somebody else do it. If they get the benefits, great. But you certainly have to do your due diligence and make sure that it's something that you want to rule out before you just decide to do that. All right, next up, number 3 on the list is Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, another guy that is just an anomaly, which is the whole draft class is this way. All the corners are like, you really like them, but also, I don't know. Edge rushers are all that way. I mean, you got all the second-round guys that are okay, and I like Nick Scorton, but I understand why you wouldn't want him, and Azaraku, same thing, and James Pierce, yeah, that's cool, but I don't know, and then Mike Green seems really good, but also is kind of scary, and he's a little small, and Shamar Stewart is really athletic, but he also kind of sucks at football, and I can't freaking win with anybody. It's a weird, I think this is the first year where you really don't want to be picking between 10 and 20 because you're using a really high pick, a valuable pick on players that are just not really worth those level of picks, I don't think. But Texas A&M 6'5", 267, 4.59 40. So he had the second fastest 40 behind James Pierce while also being the heaviest, tied with Michael Williams at 267. His 1.58 10-yard split was also the second fastest behind James Pierce. 84.75 wingspan is the longest wingspan of anybody, which is weird because he doesn't have the longest arms, so he's got just broad shoulders or something. He's only 21.45 and has a perfect 10 RAS. So right there, if you're wanting to see the vision, you just saw it. That is the vision. He's a young guy with better tools than anybody else in not only the edge class, but maybe in all of this entire class as far as how much room to grow and how potentially good this person could be. And I know Packer fans are very skeptical of that for good reason, but that is the vision. And he's absolutely that guy that if he ends up being a stud football player in the pros, everybody's going to say, well, duh. By the way, I will point this out. His pass rush grades are terrible. 39 pressures on 315 attempts is above 10%. 2 sacks is pretty bad, but he also has a 67 pass rush grade, but an 88 run defense grade. So at the very least, he's a big dude with massive upside and potential as a pass rusher that is already a dominant run defender, just adding to the overall appeal here, I suppose. As far as what game to watch, it's real tough because he's got some banger games. Again, the sacks are low, the pressures aren't. He has 8 pressures against Mississippi State, 4 against Bowling Green, 7 against Arkansas, 4 against Notre Dame, 6 against South Carolina, and then a couple other 2Z, 3Z, whatever games here. And I've got tape on several of them, but it's one of those where it's like the left tackle is good, the right tackle is just dog crap. I think the best game to watch is going to be Missouri. They have very good tackles. It was his 4th worst game, and he had 2 pressures. So I feel like I'm being a little unfair because he's got some games where I'm sure if you want to see the pass rush potential, it's absolutely there. Again, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Arkansas is not a terrible one. I think Arkansas has a left tackle with a 69 pass blocking grade, which is perfectly fine. Their right tackle, though, has a 48.6 pass block. I mean, it's garbage. And then they have another tackle. It's one of these two he played against. Probably Keyshawn Blackstone, to be honest. He has a 42 pass blocking grade. That's even worse. So I'd rather watch him against NFL caliber, even though I also want to see let's see the pass rush, I guess. But Missouri is probably the best one to watch. So I know the comparison has been thrown out there a ton, but I really just do see a lot of Rashawn Gary, and I really don't hate it. I mean, the sack numbers are low, but it makes sense because he's a collapse the pocket guy. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. What is Rashawn Gary's one move? It's to kind of use speed to the outside and then bull rush into their chest. So it's a bull rush, but it's also I'm going to kind of speed to the outside to kind of get you off your base a little bit. And because I'm fast and athletic, but also big and strong and powerful, this is going to work almost every time. And so he's going to bull rush right into your chest and then just slowly push you back into the quarterback. And he does it almost every single time. And that's what I'm seeing him do over and over again. And these are very good tackles. This is Armand Membo at right tackle. It's Marcus Bryant at left tackle, who has a 76 run blocking and 73 pass blocking grade. And I know people get annoyed with the lack of sacks, but we heard before, I forget exactly who it was, but somebody else was talking about, there's these high sack guys that do it at the expense of the team. They're vacating their gaps because they don't give a crap about the team. They don't care about anybody else. They just want their sack numbers. And you see it all the time. These guys are running all the way around, trying to get around the guy, and you leave a wide open hole there for the quarterback to get through. But if you just keep doing something stupid over and over and over again, even though you get hurt 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up getting a sack on that 10th time. And so you're going to end up with really big sack numbers. So even though the team hates you because you suck at your job and you're constantly leaving things open, and I'm sure he's always getting scolded in the film room, all the fans think he's some kind of a superstar. Look at all the sacks. Look at all the sacks. Shamar Stewart is a compress the pocket guy. He is Rashawn Gary. I mean, he's very fast. And if he gets he is Pierce if Pierce was strong. Maybe not as agile as Pierce. He's carrying more weight and he's taller and all that. Actually, he's not taller. But I mean, the vision here is you put him on the opposite side of Rashawn Gary and those two collapse the pocket on the inside and you hope to have something on the interior. And you're just smashing quarterbacks 24/7. Now, does he actually get sacked by that person? Does he get sacked by the defensive tackle when he tries to step up? Does he escape the pocket and end up throwing it away, in which case nobody gets a sack and it's just a pressure and everybody says, well, pressures don't matter and they're stupid and who cares and you suck, even though they completely killed the play? I don't really hate it. I think the only thing that concerns me is he doesn't seem to really know what he's doing, and you can view that as a negative or you can see it as there's a room for growth, but I'm always very skeptical of the growth argument. Some guys just aren't really good at this, and they don't really. I would use Quay as an example, and I hate to pick on the guy, but my issue with Quay is that he hesitates. Well, he hesitates because he doesn't know what he's doing. Well, give him time to learn. Well, how's that working out? He's just not getting it. I don't think he can process fast enough to really get it. And so it becomes a thing where we just need to put better players around him and limit what he's being asked to do so that he can just play downhill. And when he does, he's fantastic. I love Quay when he just reacts, but he doesn't. He kind of just stands there a lot. And so the idea that, well, if we just teach him, then all of a sudden he'll know what to do and he'll be this great pass rusher, that's not a guarantee. Some guys play slow and they play hesitant despite all the speed because they just don't really know what to do, and they keep doing the same thing over and over again because they don't have pass rush moves and they don't know how to counter things and all this stuff. And so you kind of just do the same thing over and over again. The positive side here is, again, hyper athlete that potentially could develop quite a bit more as a pass rusher in terms of pass rush moves and learning how to do it. Number two, he's already a really good run defender. Number three, I think his floor is like, I hate to say Rashawn Gary, because Rashawn Gary is a very good football player that has a like pressure and sack numbers. But let's say the caricature of Rashawn Gary, of the people that hate Rashawn Gary, what they would say about him. A guy that can compress the pocket, probably won't have very high sack numbers, but at a minimum can set an edge and collapse a pocket, which is extremely beneficial in and of itself. The worst case scenario with him, he just sucks at rushing the passer. He doesn't do it. And, that is the concern, that is the fear, but that's also the vision here. And I do tend to think he has a relatively high floor, depending on if the only metric for you is sacks, then he has a low floor. But he checks most of the boxes of what he's going to be asked to do just day one. Some of these guys can rack up sacks, but they got tight ends pushing them out of the way, allowing a run to that side. Or, there's a run to that side because rather than just setting the edge, you said, screw the edge, I'm going to try to run around this guy and get to the quarterback. Well, now you just vacated. It was a 20-yard run. But nobody cares because nobody really thinks about that at the time. All they think about is, hey, he had 2 sacks because he's a superstar. Wow, 2 good plays, and how many did he, we lost the freaking game because he can't set an edge. I'm sorry, but judging somebody based on sacks to me is silly. 10 sacks on 1,000 plays? These guys are 800-900 plays in a season. And it's good or bad based on the difference between 12 and 7? 7 sacks, you suck. 12, you're great. You know what percentage that is? That gap between 7 and 12 compared to the entire, let's say a 5 sack gap, 5 plays over 1,000 snaps. Come on, guys. Shamar Stewart is number 3 on the Beast Guide. 1-year starter at A&M. Stewart lined up primarily as an edge rusher and head coach Mike Elko's 4-man front, spending time over the tackle and inside over the B-gap. He is the type of prospect who will test the traits over production slogan that NFL teams subscribe to, as he never had more than 1.5 sacks in any of his 3 seasons in College Station. However, he led the Aggies in pressures in 2024. His nickname is the Menace because he plays his butt off for all 4 quarters and competes with a competitive edge. Versatile skill set allows him to play in multiple positions up front, which again is not something I generally love, but teams and the Packers love that. I like specialists, a little bit, as far as this guy, he does this one thing really well, as opposed to, he's not good at anything, but he does 7 things kind of mediocre, which is wonderful. Like, no, it's freaking not. I don't know. It probably is. I'm so tired of hearing about it. Shamar Stewart, who is of Jamaican descent, born in the Miami area to parents Latoya and Ansel. His grandmother, Margaret Sterling, played a significant hand raising Stewart. Also has a father-son relationship with Mo Marquez, a former defensive line coach in high school. Marquez became Stewart's mentor. Both he and his wife refer to Stewart as a son. Their 2 young children look up to Stewart as an older brother. Despite being a bigger kid, Stewart never really thought about playing sports until age 12 when a teacher convinced him to give football a chance, often being the last kid picked in 6th grade gym class at Ives Estate Park in Miami motivated Stewart to reach his athletic potential. His attitude toward football and training changed significantly after that time. He started to get noticed by recruiters near the end of his middle school days. He played on both offense and defense for the Hialeah Cougars as an 8th grader. He enrolled at Monsignor Edward Pace High, a Catholic high school in Miami Gardens, saw varsity snaps at 6'4", 215 as a freshman, blew up immediately on recruiting trail as a sophomore. He posted 48 tackles, 15 sacks in 10 games. His teammate his junior season with wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, who later transferred to whatever and then signed with Ohio State. Played in only 2 games because of injuries, sprained AC joint and bone bruise on his knee in the COVID-19 pandemic, As a senior, he earned all-state and all-county honors, 85 tackles, 40 tackles for a loss, 14 sacks. Earned an invitation to 22 Under Armour All-American game. Also lettered in basketball at pace, averaging double-digit rebounds per game. Set the school record with 613-pound deadlift. Five-star recruit, third-ranked defensive lineman behind Walter Nolan and Michael Williams in the 22 recruiting class. Number 1 recruit in Florida. Consensus top 10 recruit nationally. During his freshman year, Stewart's through-the-roof potential reached legendary status. As the recruitment took off, he received his first offers from Pittsburgh and collected more than 15 offers before the start of his sophomore year, including Florida, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, Tennessee, and his hometown Miami, the program for which he rooted for as a child. Several other top programs, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, entered the picture during his sophomore year. Going into his senior year, he announced the top 5 of Clemson, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. After being hired as Miami's head coach in December 2021, Mario Cristobal made Stewart his first call and unleashed a full-court press of keeping the local product home. But Stewart's connection with Texas A&M coaching staff led him to commit elsewhere. His parents also wanted him to leave the area to avoid any temptations. That's very smart. I love when that happens. You got great parents who understand natural temptation, especially at that age. Understand you got friends who are kind of stupid and you want to just separate yourself from it and send your kid away. I think that's really, really smart. Stewart was a third-ranked player in former head coach Jimbo Fisher's famed 22 class, which included 8 five-star recruits, 5 of them on the defensive line. Of the 5, only Stewart finished his college career with the Aggies. After 3 seasons in College Station, Stewart decided to skip his senior year, enter the draft. He opted out of the bowl game, accepted an invitation to the Senior Bowl. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we will do the final 2, Michael Williams and Jalen Walker, both of which are very unlikely to be anywhere available. But again, I don't want there to be some kind of a scenario where either they fall or we trade up and we didn't talk about them. So we'll do that, and then we'll get up out of here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, next up we got Michael Williams. Also, by the way, not exactly a dynamo as a pass rusher. He is not yet 21 years old. So him and Nick Scorton are the 2 youngest guys. So there's obviously that working for him. He is 267 pounds, so he's kind of a outside-inside guy. At least that's kind of how they've used him at Georgia. Again, not my favorite thing in the world. I think Shamar Stewart gets the brunt, but I think Shamar Stewart and Michael Williams are actually very similar. The biggest difference being Michael Williams is not as dominant of an athlete. So he had, for example, 26 pressures and 5 sacks. Now, 5 sacks is more than 2, but not by much. He had 5, 6, and 6 sacks. So never really even getting close to double digit. And his 26 pressures on 250 attempts is barely 10%. Very similar to Shamar Stewart. Again, slightly better, but very similar. 83 run defense grade, 71 pass rush grade. So the pass rush was not nearly as good. In fact, only 3 games he had a 70 or higher grade. 71 against UMass, 77 against Tennessee, and then he had his one really good game. Strangely enough, he hardly played, and he only played on passing down, so I don't know exactly what happened there, but 87.5 pass rush grade and no run defense, tackling, or coverage grades. So very weird game. He also only had one kind of dominant game as far as a pass rusher against Texas. That was a bowl game, but he had 6 pressures and 2 sacks. So, again, I would say it's very similar to Shamar Stewart. He's just not catching any of the heat that Shamar Stewart is. So I guess I would characterize it as whereas Shamar Stewart is an athlete trying to figure out how to play football player, Michael Williams is less gifted than Shamar, but is a football player. He doesn't seem to have that ability to just, no matter what, I'm going to push you straight back into the quarterback. He does get stuck at times and all that stuff, but he's got a plethora of pass rush moves. He seems to be much more intentional. He knows what he's doing. He has a plan. He's sniffing out screens. He's, everything just feels like a professional football player when he plays. And he happens to be a big, strong dude. I'm not saying he's weak. He's 245. He's 267. He's a big, strong guy. I'm sure there's plenty of room for development and growth in there as well. But whereas, Mike Green is a little bit reckless. Mike Green. Mike Green, that's his name. Mike Green is a little bit reckless, but just has this raw dynamite potential. Shamar Stewart seems unsure, but he's got a ton of potential. Mykel Williams he just seems like a good football player. Not really, an elite pass rusher like a lot of these guys that just have these traits, like a lot of maybe early first-round picks who've got not only the size and the length and the speed and the bend and the whole package. He's a bigger dude that maybe is a little bit more stiff and whatnot, but that's the best way I can describe it. He just feels like a football player. He knows what he's doing. And again, at 6'5", 267, he's already a really good run defender. He seems to be really intelligent. Seems to know, he's swiping hands away. He's doing the dip and rip and the whole. I mean, he's got the whole arsenal there to try to be able to get past people. He seems very tenacious. I know that was a note on Shamar Stewart, but I saw a little bit more hesitation with him. Mykel Williams is I'm just going to keep going, and if you're in the way, I'm going to try to find a way to get around you. Sounds simple, but for a lot of guys, it's not that simple. They kind of I don't freaking know what to do anymore. Kind of Mike Green in that sense. It's cleaner than Mike Green. Mike Green will find a way around you, but he might be tripping and falling on his way to do it because he's desperately, psychotically trying to get after somebody. Mykel Williams will stay on his feet. Williams is actually listed number 5 edge rusher on the board behind, let me go back real quick, behind Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, who we have, but also behind Shamar Stewart and Mike Green. 2-year starter at Georgia, Williams played jack edge rusher in head coach Kirby Smart's scheme, aligning all over the front seven from 3-5 technique to stand-up outside linebacker, consensus top 10 recruit out of high school. His junior season wasn't the true breakout year many expected on the stat sheet, but he set career bests in sacks and tackles for a loss despite dealing with a left ankle sprain that he re-injured multiple times during the season. So that's a positive and a negative. Injuries are never a good thing. However, if you're saying that he did all this with a sprained ankle, not only did he fight through it for his team, but he actually played fairly well and would have played better had he not had a freaking sprained ankle. He comped him sort of to Jason Pierre-Paul. Defensive coaches cross-trained him at multiple positions in the front seven, served as team captain in 4 games in 2024. Strong character feedback from coaches. Kirby Smart said he's very versatile for us in terms of on the field, but there is no greater value than what he does in the locker room. He's a great leader for us. So I love that. That's big. Missed 2 games and parts of several others because of a grade 2 high left ankle sprain September 2024. Missed 2023 spring practice after aggravating previous foot injury, which required surgery in April 2023. So there is a little bit of issue there. The name is pronounced Mykel, just confirming that. Born in Warm Springs, Georgia, north of Columbus, grew up in both Alabama and Georgia. His father, John Johnson, introduced him to sports, including football. Williams started playing organized football at age 8 in Columbus Youth Football League. He worked on both offensive and defensive lines in Pop Warner, played soccer, basketball, wrestling, dunked a basketball for the first time in 8th grade. He later trained with defensive line specialist Chuck Smith, who now serves as the Baltimore Ravens pass rush coach. That's very interesting. Not going to make it to the Ravens, but it's still interesting. Went to Hardaway High School in Columbus, Georgia, 4-year varsity letterman. Played offensive tackle as a freshman, but preferred defense and talked to the coaches about switching to the defensive line. Missed a few games of a sophomore season because of a patella strain. So this does go all the way back to high school. He's had some recurring injury stuff. They're all things where it's like, well, it was kind of minor and he got it fixed, so there's no reason to believe it's going to happen again. I get that. But then there's another thing and another thing and another thing. But he announced himself as one of the top players in the area over the final 9 games. He finished with 57 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, earned all-state honors as a junior. Despite seeing constant double and triple teams, Williams finished the senior season with 81 tackles, 20.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles, becoming the first player in school history named a 2-time first-team all-state player. He also played offense primarily as a blocking tight end in short yardage, but he did a 30-yard touchdown catch as a senior, earned numerous All-American honors in 21. Williams was a standout wrestler at Hardaway, initially in the 220-pound division of the sophomore and junior year before moving up to 280-pound division as a senior. 5-star recruit, Williams is a second-ranked defensive lineman behind Walter Nolan in the 22 recruiting class and the number 2 recruit of Georgia behind Travis Hunter. He was a number 4 recruit nationally behind Hunter, Nolan, Luther Burden. The summer before his sophomore season, Williams attended a recruiting camp at Tennessee and picked up his first offers in June 2019. His recruitment skyrocketed after his sophomore season, and he received numerous SEC offers, including from Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina. After his junior year, he announced top 10 of Alabama, Arizona State, Clemson, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, LSU, Ohio State, Penn State, and USC. He committed to head coach Clay Helton and USC the summer before his senior season. His family was caught off guard when USC fired Helton a few months later. Williams decided to reopen his recruitment and flipped to his home state of Georgia in October. He was the top-ranked recruit in head coach Kirby Smart's 2022 class. After 3 seasons in Athens, he elected to skip his senior season and enter the NFL draft. So there you go. Again, he's likely to go in and around the top 10, if not top 10, shortly thereafter. There's plenty of teams that have been linked to Mykel Williams. Similarly, Jalen Walker. But again, you never know. I mean, that's the thing with these guys. Jalen Walker's a smaller guy. I think Micah Parsons has kind of made it in vogue to go after these types of guys. That's sort of the comp, so he'll probably will fly off the board, but you never know. If he slips to 12, 13, could the Packers jump up? Unlikely, but we're going to talk about it anyways. We're not going to do Abdul Carter because he's gone at, 3 probably. But we will end with Jalen Walker, 6'1", 243 pounds. However, 10.25-inch hands are the second largest hands. His 79.875 wingspan is plenty big. It's, the third shortest, but basically 80. And he's 21.16 years old. Like I said, most of these guys are very young. Only one is over the age of 22, or, is not under 23, I should say. The one very weird thing about Jalen Walker is that he actually primarily played inside linebacker. He was kind of a hybrid, but if you look at just PFF's designation where he primarily played, his first 3 games, weeks 1, 2, and 3, he was a outside linebacker. From weeks 5, he didn't play week 4 on bye or whatever, I don't know. Week 5 through the Notre Dame bowl game, he was listed as a weak side linebacker. Now, that doesn't seem to be deterring a single person on planet Earth, but it is worth noting, and it's kind of weird a little bit. But again, the whole Micah Parsons thing, I think, has just blown that all up. He was an inside linebacker, got moved to edge because he's a very good edge, and I think there's going to be tunnel vision on this, and he's going to go early. But that is something to note. It's also frustrating because there's less pass rush to actually view, and so you probably want to watch one of the first games, either Clemson or Kentucky, if you can find it. I think Clemson's the only one I've got where he was designated as an outside linebacker. Not that he didn't get put out there in other instances, but as far as actual pass rush opportunities, well, Texas actually in the championship game was his most pass rush opportunities. I might just do that one. Plus, you got Kelvin Banks and Cameron Williams, who are 2 tackles in this draft class, so that's kind of a perfect game to watch, actually, depending on where he's even blitzing from. But it's whatever. So my thoughts on him are essentially this. Take James Pierce and make him a better football player. He's got all the athleticism and everything else, but he's got more strength to him. His ability to hold his own, to shed blocks, which is, is an inside linebacker thing, but it's really impressive because, a lot of times they'll get into, even the edge rushers, they'll get inside your chest and drive you back. He's got a great ability to throw them off of him and hold his ground and say, I'm staying right here. He's got really good hands. There was a play that I watched a couple different times that was really impressive. It was off the right tackle, which would have been Cameron or whatever his name is. But I went back and looked at it. So as the offensive lineman is trying to put his hands on him, he grabs his right hand. So his right hand never even gets on Jalen Walker. He grabs his right hand and holds it out, and then with his right hand, he grabs the left shoulder. So if you're the left tackle, your left shoulder is being pushed, your right hand is being pushed away from your body. First of all, just to catch a guy's hand as it's being thrust at you is impressive. He drives in that direction and then pushes off and comes back to the inside to get a pressure. Now, in fast motion, it's like, okay, he just swam inside and got a pressure. That's cool. But when you look at the technical refinement, and maybe he got lucky, I don't know. But that's pretty impressive stuff. And he's got all that in his repertoire. Now, he is a smaller guy, so he will get stuck. He went up against Kelvin Banks a couple times and he's just dead in the water. There's nowhere to go. He's got him locked up. He's not doing anything. And that's where you get to this draft class and just say, there are not, we're not talking Abdul Carter here necessarily, although as far as like those lock number 1 type of guys, I don't know if he's in like the top of the top category, but he's probably going to be a very good football player. He is impressive. But there's just no locks here. And if somebody like Shamar Stewart over Jalen Walker or Michael Williams or Green or whatever over any of these guys, it's not that shocking. It's also, I think, a really tough evaluation because Jalen Walker does have a lot of inside linebacker reps. On top of that, it's a tough evaluation because Georgia is, number one, loaded with talent. So on most plays, he's getting close to the quarterback, but the entire defensive line is overwhelming the entire offensive line. It's mass chaos, and you're just contributing to the chaos and taking advantage of that. It's hard to isolate what you're doing when the offensive line collapses and you're just kind of taking advantage of it. There's also just a ton of deception. Leave aside how talented everybody on that defensive line is, the way they use their front, blitzing linebackers, moving pieces around, all these different creative things to confuse the offensive line, as opposed to just watching him in a mano-a-mano rep with a tackle. I mean, I watched the entire game, and I had to skip so many different things. I mean, he lined up against tight ends. He played a ton of linebacker, blitzing from the inside, even on the line of scrimmage, but he's on the inside. I mean, just seeing him line up as an outside linebacker and attacking a tackle and just seeing the mano-a-mano, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But there's just so much you have to weed through. It's not to say you can't evaluate, a double team or him coming from the inside or from the linebacker. I'm sure there are still nuanced things you can see in terms of his athleticism or his ability to use his hands or shed blocks or whatever. All those things you can still do, but I primarily want to see him in the role that I'm going to put him in, and he just isn't doing it a ton. He played as a left outside linebacker against Tennessee Tech, and he rushed the passer 2 times. He was a right outside linebacker against Clemson week 1 and rushed the passer 9 times. He played a weak side linebacker against Texas and rushed the passer 26 times. Against Tennessee Tech, he dropped in coverage more than he rushed the passer as an outside linebacker. Now, a lot of that has to do with how often they run the ball and whatnot, but still, it's going to be very hard to find what you need to find from this guy and to just be absolutely positive that he's going to be a good football player. It's kind of hard for me to distinguish between the other guys like Pierce that are kind of smaller, athletic guys. I do think Jalen Walker's better, but is it miles better? Is it Pierce minus the red flags? How much was of him being better is because he played for Georgia and the way that they used him. If you normalize all those things and take the red flags away, how much closer are those two as prospects? I don't know. But again, it goes to what we've been saying this whole time, which is there just aren't these slam dunks. For me, anyways. I don't see Jalen Walker as a slam. I like Jalen Walker, and I would be excited if we somehow were able to draft the guy. But if Jalen Walker ended up not panning out and was just one of those kind of speed guys off the edge that, was okay sometimes, it wouldn't be super shocking. 1-year starter at Georgia, Walker played in hybrid linebacker role, mostly 2-point stance, and head coach Kirby Smart's scheme, splitting his snaps between inside linebacker, outside linebacker, and edge rusher. Walker said, "I'm at my best being a chess piece," which again, I see as a general negative, unless you want to use him in that capacity, because he's probably right. His best asset is that he can do a bunch of stuff and he can confuse teams where you don't know what he's going to do. If you say you do one thing now and everybody kind of knows what you're doing, how much does your production plummet? Just a question. Says there's projection involved in his evaluation, but his pass rush upside and overall versatility make him one of the best talents in the class. And that's true, but again, if your plan is, you're just an outside linebacker, go stand there and rush the passer, okay, well then a portion of what makes him such a good prospect kind of goes away, right? And are there teams that actually would use him inside? I doubt it. Experienced box player with coverage snaps over slot, blocked a punt in 22 and played on punt coverage in 24 with 2 tackles. He was chosen to represent Georgia in the SEC Leadership Council in 2023. Son of a coach, Georgia coaches praised his character. Kirby Smart said, "You're not going to find a higher quality kid in any organization. He is unbelievable in what he stands for and what he represents and how he works." Again, I love that. Love that, love that, love that. Because that's value that gets brought to your team, even if he's a bad football player. That's just value that you're just purchasing and slapping on your team immediately. 2 offsides penalties in 24, including a costly flag on 4th and 1. on the 2024 Notre Dame tape. I don't see that as super big red flag. 2 offsides penalties. Played in all 43 games past 3 seasons, but missed 2023 spring practice because of a labrum surgery. Jalen Walker, oldest of 2 boys, born and raised in Conway, South Carolina, with to his parents, Curtis Walker Sr. and Lashika, his father, an All-American linebacker at Division II Catawba in 89 to 92, was introduced into the school's Hall of Fame in 2004. After a short coaching stint at Salisbury High, Curtis was an assistant coach at Catawba before being hired as defensive coordinator at Coastal Carolina in 2002. The Walker family spent 10 years in Conway, and Jalen grew up around the Chanticleers program, receiving an early football education by attending daily practices. After 1 season as an assistant with Western Carolina in 2012, Curtis was hired as head coach of Catawba in 2013, and the family relocated to Salisbury, North Carolina. Curtis served as head coach for 10 years and was named 2015 Conference Coach of the Year before resigning after the 2022 season. He has worked at the high school level and as an analyst at Livingston College in Salisbury the past 2 seasons. Lashika works as a development officer at Catawba. Though Jalen Walker grew up around football, he played several other sports throughout childhood, starting with basketball and then soccer and track. He attended a private middle school in Salisbury that didn't offer football, but he got the itch to play in 7th grade and joined a rec league team. A talented singer, Jalen grew up in the church choir and has performed the national anthem at several games and events. His younger brother, Deuce, who also played at Salisbury, was a freshman cornerback at Georgia State in 2024. It's interesting. He was four-year varsity letterman at Salisbury High, played offense and defense, tight end, linebacker, edge, helped the program to a 13-3 record as a sophomore. Walker's junior season was pushed to spring of 2021 because of COVID. Led Salisbury to a 9-2 record, including 2A state championship. Named 2020 Gatorade Player of the Year in North Carolina. While playing alongside his younger brother as a senior, Walker helped Salisbury to an 11-1 finish, 2021 conference title. Named Conference Defensive Player of the Year for the 2nd straight season, took home all-conference, all-county honors of the 4th straight year. Walker earned an invite to the 2022 Under Armour All-American game. Lettered in basketball at Salisbury and set the school's single-game record for blocks. Walker, who won his first slam dunk contest as a freshman, played for Pro Skills Basketball Elite, now called Team Curry, throughout high school and traveled on the Under Armour circuit. He also ran track and had a personal best 19 feet 9 inches in the long jump, 37.7-inch in the triple jump, 89 feet in the discus, 11.94 in the 100-meter. He graduated with a GPA above a 4.0. 5-star recruit, Walker was a 4th-ranked linebacker in the 22 recruiting class, number 2 recruit in North Carolina, number 46 ranked nationally. He started to receive recruiting attention as a freshman, including from Duke, North Carolina. The recruiting offers floodgates burst open soon after. He received dozens more offers, including Florida State, LSU, Notre Dame, South Carolina, Texas A&M. During his junior year, Walker announced the top 6 of Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio State. A few weeks before winning the state championship, he chose the Georgia cap and committed to head coach Kirby Smart. Walker was a 5th-ranked recruit in Smart's 2022 class. After 3 seasons, he elected to forego his senior season and enter the NFL draft. So, quite a few high-character guys, which is good. A lot of very young edge rushers. Again, it feels much more likely that the Packers would go this route, just partially because of the just the play. You know, the quality seems higher than corner, if I'm being completely honest. Part of that is my personal evaluation. Part of that, I think, is just the way it is. You look at the age of the guys and the RAS. I mean, it just feels much more like a group that the Packers would be interested in. Tons of talent, tons of upside, a lot of high character guys, and also just much more bodies. The bigger issue, though, is that for corner and for edge, I don't know that really a ton of them line up where the Packers are picking. Right now, you've got at corner Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron at 13 and 15. Hairston's at 37. Well, the top 2 should be long gone before the Packers pick, and nobody worth anything should be available by the time the Packers are there. Same here. You've got Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart, and Mike Green that go out to 18, and they'll probably be gone before that because it's a high-value position. But if the Packers don't trade up, they're probably not getting any of those. And then you have James Pierce, who's arguably a second-round pick, and all the rest of them who are arguably second-round picks. Now, again, the Packers can do whatever they want. But in terms of currently where the consensus is, as far as cornerback and edge, it's not lining up super great. The ones you want are gone, and then everybody else is not good enough value at 23. Again, this is just consensus stuff. We'll see how it actually lays out. For quick reference, as of right now, the guy's kind of in that range. Mike Green is actually up to 17th instead of 18th, so he's moved up already. But you've got Matthew Golden at 20. You've got Josh Simmons, the tackle, at 22. Amarian Hampton is at 23. That's a running back. Kenneth Grant is the one guy that's kind of hovering in this area. But right now, you got one wide receiver and kind of 3 defensive tackles. So we'll get to defensive tackle. Maybe we'll do that next because that is kind of lining up the best. You got Kenneth Grant, 24, Walter Nolan, 29, Derek Harmon, 28. So the 3 defensive tackles are kind of hovering right in that range. Otherwise, you've got a safety, a tackle, a running back, a safety, a quarterback, an interior offensive lineman, another interior offensive lineman. It's not a lot of positions the Packers are interested in, kind of hovering in that area. I say not interested in, but who knows? You never know. They draft a frickin' safety or something. And again, it depends who falls where and how this goes. Maybe Colston Loveland falls to the Packers, or Mike Green falls, or Shamar falls, and then the Packers jump all over it. I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out. All right, I'm out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.